key card doesn't beep. Maya Washington stands at the service entrance of the Grandview Country Club, her uniform pressed, her hands steady. She swipes again. Nothing. The red light blinks twice. Denial without explanation. She's worked here for 11 months. Same card, same door, same 5:47 a.m. Arrival time, 3 minutes before her shift starts in the estate management office. Behind the tinted glass, someone is watching. Maya knocks, professional, controlled. She knows the rules. No side entrances after policy violations, no exceptions during probationary reviews. She hasn't violated anything. The door opens 6 inches. Trevor Callahan, facilities supervisor, fills the gap. Mid-40s, polo shirt with the Grandview crest, clipboard in hand. He doesn't smile. "Ye, Mrs. Washington. My key card isn't working. I'm aware." He glances at the clipboard. Authorization has been suspended pending an internal review. Maya's pulse stays even. "What review?" "Personnel matter. Confidential." He tilts his head slightly, almost sympathetic. "Almost. You'll need to wait for HR to contact you. Procedure. I have the Ashford Estate inspection at 7. Mr. Bellamy requested me specifically. Reassigned." The word lands like a gavel. Trevor's hand moves to close the door, but he pauses. "There's a meeting scheduled. You'll receive an envelope with details. Until then, you're not to enter club property or contact any members directly. Liability reasons." Maya doesn't move. Her voice stays calm. "I need to know what this is about." "You will." Trevor's eyes flicker to the CCTV camera above the entrance. He knows it's recording. "When it's appropriate." The door clicks shut. Maya stands in the dim morning light, her breath visible in the October air. The parking lot behind her is empty except for her 15-year-old Honda. The club grounds stretch out ahead, manicured, gated, untouchable. She's been flagged. Not fired, flagged, which means someone filed something. Someone documented a claim. Someone started a record, and in places like Grandview, records don't disappear. They build. Maya turns and walks back to her car. She doesn't rush, doesn't cry. She moves like someone who understands that panic is evidence. She sits in the driver's seat and checks her phone. No missed calls, no emails, no warnings. Just a red light, a locked door, and his supervisor who spoke like he was reading from a script. Maya starts the engine. She doesn't know it yet, but that door will never open for her again. And the people who closed it have no idea what they just started. Maya Washington sits in her kitchen at 7:13 a.m., staring at her phone. The call from HR still hasn't come. She's made coffee she won't drink and reheated oatmeal that's gone cold. Her daughter Simone, 16, is upstairs getting ready for school. The house is small but clean, 2 bedrooms, bills paid on time, a life built carefully over 7 years since the divorce. Maya's ex-husband sends nothing. The court order is 14 months overdue for enforcement, but enforcement costs money and lawyers cost more. So Maya works. She's worked since Simone was 9. Grandview Country Club pays $24 an hour for estate management coordinators, $3 more than her last job, and it came with the promise of benefits after the probationary year. That year ends in 19 days. She opens her laptop and logs into the employee portal. Her account is still active. She scrolls through her task history, 11 months of completed inspections, member service requests, and vendor coordination reports. Every entry is green. No warnings, no flags, no missed deadlines. She screenshots everything, saves it to a folder labeled Work Evidence, and backs it up to a thumb drive she keeps in her purse. Maya has learned that when institutions start moving in silence, you document before they can rewrite. At 9:42 a.m., the email arrives. Subject line, mandatory meeting, personnel review. The body is 3 sentences. She is required to attend a closed-door meeting at 2 p.m. today in Conference Room B at the Grandview Administrative Building. Attendance is compulsory. Failure to attend will be considered voluntary resignation. There is no signature, only an automated footer with the club's legal disclaimer. Maya responds immediately. She asks for the nature of the review, the parties involved, and whether she is permitted to bring a witness. She keeps her tone neutral, professional, the way she's trained herself to be in spaces where emotion is used against you. The reply comes 11 minutes later, also automated. All questions will be addressed during the scheduled meeting. Please confirm attendance. She confirms. The administrative building sits at the north end of the Grandview property, a sleek glass structure surrounded by hedges and Italian stone fountains. Maya parks in the visitor lot because her employee access has been revoked across all systems. She walks through the main entrance, signs in at the front desk, and is given a temporary badge with guest printed in red block letters. The receptionist, a young woman named Kara, who used to smile at Maya in the break room, won't make eye contact now. Maya clips the badge to her shirt and takes the stairs to the second floor. Conference room B is at the end of a long hallway lined with framed photographs of the club's founding families. Men in suits from the 1960s, women in pearls, children on horseback. Maya has cleaned some of their descendants' homes. She knows which ones tip and which ones watch her with suspicion when she moves through their private spaces. She stops outside the door, checks her watch, 1:58 p.m., and knocks twice. Come in. The room is small and windowless. A long table dominates the center, flanked by 6 chairs. 3 are occupied. Trevor Callahan sits to the left, the same clipboard in front of him, his expression unreadable. Across from him is Monica Schaefer, Director of Human Resources, mid-50s, tailored navy blazer, reading glasses perched on the bridge of her nose, and at the head of the table, fingers steepled, sits Richard Pembroke. Pembroke is not HR. He is not facilities. He is the Senior Managing Director of Member Affairs, which means he is the voice of the families who own stakes in Grandview. He is the gatekeeper of reputation, the enforcer of discretion, the man who makes problems disappear before they reach the board. He is 58, silver-haired, and speaks with the kind of calm that comes from never having been told no. Maya sits in the chair across from him. She folds her hands on the table. She does not smile. She waits. Monica opens a file folder. Manila, unmarked except for a handwritten date in the corner. She does not look at Maya when she speaks. Mrs. Washington, thank you for coming. This meeting is being conducted in accordance with club policy regarding conduct violations and member complaints. You are here to respond to allegations that have been filed through the proper channels. Maya keeps her voice steady. What allegations? Monica glances at Pembroke. He nods, permission granted. She continues. On October 9th, you were assigned to coordinate a pre-event inspection at the Ashford estate. During that inspection, a member reported that you behaved in a manner inconsistent with club standards, specifically that you were dismissive, failed to follow instruction, and created an uncomfortable environment. Maya's stomach tightens, but her face doesn't change. Who made this complaint? The identity of the complainant is confidential. That's policy. What instruction did I fail to follow? Monica flips a page. The report states that you argued with the homeowner regarding access to certain rooms and refused to adjust your inspection timeline when asked. Maya knows exactly which day this is referencing, the Ashford estate, October 9th. She arrived at 7:03 a.m., completed a routine pre-event walkthrough for a private luncheon scheduled that weekend, and left by 8:40 a.m. The homeowner, Vanessa Ashford, wife of real estate developer Craig Ashford, wasn't even present. The housekeeper let her in. Maya submitted her report by 10 a.m. Everything was documented. Everything was approved. I didn't speak to Mrs. Ashford that day, Maya says. I coordinated with her staff. There was no argument. Monica doesn't look up. The complaint was filed on October 11th. It states that your conduct during the visit was inappropriate and that Mrs. Ashford felt disrespected in her own home. She wasn't there. That's noted in your defense. Monica closes the folder. However, the nature of the complaint requires a formal response. During this review period, your access to member properties will remain suspended. You'll be placed on administrative leave without pay, pending the completion of our investigation. Maya's hands tighten slightly, but she keeps them flat on the table. How long is the investigation? Standard procedure is 2 to 4 weeks. I've been here 11 months. I've never had a complaint. This is the first formal report, yes. Monica adjusts her glasses. But we take all member concerns seriously. Grandview's reputation depends on trust. Richard Pembroke leans forward slightly. His voice is smooth, almost kind. Mrs. Washington, no one is accusing you of malice. But perception matters here. Our members expect a certain level of deference. If there's been a miscommunication, we'll resolve it. But we need time to review the facts. Maya meets his eyes. I'd like to see the complaint. That's not part of the procedure. I'd like to speak to Mrs. Ashford directly. That would be inappropriate during an active investigation. Liability. There it is. The word Trevor used. The word Monica will use again. Liability. The language of institutions that have already decided. Oh, Maya stands. When will I hear from you? You'll receive written updates as the process continues. Monica hands her a single sheet of paper, a summary of the meeting, pre-printed, waiting for her signature at the bottom. Please sign to confirm you've been informed of the allegations and the terms of your leave. Maya reads it twice. It says nothing about her defense, nothing about the timeline, nothing about her right to representation. It simply states that she has been notified of a complaint and agrees to comply with the review process. She does not sign. I'd like a copy of my personnel file before I leave. Monica's expression tightens. That request needs to be submitted in writing. I'm submitting it now. Pembroke's smile doesn't reach his eyes. We'll have it sent to you within 10 business days. Policy. Maya places the unsigned document on the table, turns and walks out. She doesn't slam the door. She doesn't raise her voice. She simply leaves because she knows that everything she does now is being watched, recorded, and added to a file she will never be allowed to see in full. She drives home in silence. When she pulls into her driveway, she sits in the car for 5 minutes, hands on the steering wheel, breathing through the tightness in her chest. Then she goes inside, opens her laptop, and writes down everything that was said. Every word, every pause, every glance. That night, she logs into the employee portal again. Her task history has changed. 3 entries from September. Inspections she completed with perfect scores now show as incomplete with red flags next to them. No explanation, no correction request, just red. Someone is editing the record, and Maya realizes with cold certainty that this was never about one complaint. This was always about building a case. Maya Washington does not wait for the institution to move first. On the morning of October the 16th, she drives to a FedEx store 3 miles from her house and prints every document she has. Work logs, email chains, inspection reports, screenshots of her task history before the entries were changed. She creates 3 identical packets, each one labeled and dated. One goes into a fireproof lockbox under her bed. One goes to her daughter's godmother, a paralegal named Janice who lives 2 towns over. The third stays in her car, in a sealed envelope tucked into the spare tire compartment. Maya has learned that proof means nothing if it can be disappeared. She also does something else. She remembers the housekeeper who let her into the Ashford estate on October 9th. A woman in her early 60s named Claudia, quiet and efficient, who had worked for the Ashfords for years. Claudia had been there the entire time Maya conducted the inspection. She had walked through the rooms with her, unlocked doors, confirmed that everything was in order. If anyone could verify that no argument occurred, that Vanessa Ashford wasn't even present, it was Claudia. Maya finds her number in the club's internal vendor contact list, still accessible through a cached page on her laptop, and calls at 11 a.m. On a Tuesday, a time when most staff take their breaks. Claudia answers on the 3rd ring. Her voice is cautious. Hello? Claudia, this is Maya Washington. I worked with you on the Ashford estate inspection on October 9th. Do you have a minute? There's a pause. Maya can hear background noise. A television, maybe, or a radio. Then Claudia's voice drops lower. I can't talk about this. I just need to confirm what happened that day. You were there. You know Mrs. Ashford wasn't home. You know there was no argument. I was told not to speak to you. Claudia's words come faster now, nervous. Mrs. Schaefer called me last week. She said if anyone contacts me about that day, I'm supposed to report it immediately. I'm sorry, Maya, I can't help you. The line goes dead. Maya sits with the phone in her hand, staring at the screen. Monica Schaefer, HR director, had already reached out to the only witness, already applied pressure, already built a wall around the narrative. This isn't an investigation. It's a containment operation. She calls the club's main HR line and leaves a voicemail requesting a formal appeal hearing, citing her right to due process under the employee handbook. She references Section 4.7, which guarantees any employee under review the opportunity to present a defense with supporting evidence. She keeps her tone professional, her words precise. She ends the message with a single sentence. I expect a response within 5 business days, as outlined in policy. The response comes in 2 days, but not from Monica Schaefer. It comes from Richard Pembroke. He calls her personal cell phone at 6:47 p.m., a time when most people are eating dinner, distracted, off balance. Maya is helping Simone with calculus homework when the phone buzzes. She steps into the hallway and answers. Mrs. Washington, Richard Pembroke, I wanted to reach out personally. His voice is warm, almost paternal. I received your voicemail. I understand you're feeling anxious about this process. That's natural. But I want to assure you, we're handling this by the book. Then I'd like to schedule the appeal hearing. Of course. But I'd recommend we resolve this more informally first. Appeals create a paper trail that can complicate things. For both sides. He pauses, lets the implications settle. I've spoken with Mrs. Ashford. She's willing to consider this a misunderstanding, miscommunication, cultural differences, that sort of thing. If you're willing to sign an acknowledgement that mistakes were made and commit to additional training, we can close this without further action. Maya's jaw tightens. What mistakes? Perception issues, tone, member relations. Nothing that can't be corrected. His voice shifts slightly, a little less warmth, a little more edge. The alternative is a formal hearing, which means legal review, witness depositions, a full investigation that could take months, and during that time you'd remain on unpaid leave. I'm offering you a way to get back to work, Mrs. Washington. I'd think carefully before turning that down. I want the hearing. Pembroke is silent for 3 seconds. When he speaks again, the warmth is gone. That's your right. We'll schedule it. But I'll be honest with you, these things rarely end the way employees hope. The club has resources. We have counsel, we have documentation, and we have a responsibility to protect our members. If this goes to a hearing, everything will be examined. Your entire employment record, your conduct, your history. Maya's pulse spikes, but her voice stays level. My history is clean. Is it? Another pause. I'm just saying, sometimes when we dig, we find things people forgot about. Old issues, previous employers, personal circumstances that affect job performance. I'd hate to see this become more complicated than it needs to be. It's a threat, thinly veiled, plausibly deniable, but a threat nonetheless. Maya feels the heat rising in her chest, but she forces it down. She knows this game. She's seen it before. Employers who dangle mercy while sharpening knives behind their backs. Schedule the hearing, Mr. Pembroke. I'll see you there. She hangs up before he can respond. That night, she writes down every word of the conversation. She notes the time, the tone, the implied coercion. She saves it in 3 places. And then she does something she hasn't done in years. She prays, not for justice, not for mercy, just for the strength to keep moving forward when everything inside her wants to scream. The smear campaign begins 4 days later. It doesn't come from the club officially. It comes from the edges, whispered and viral. A member's wife mentions at a charity luncheon that one of the estate coordinators had been let go for inappropriate behavior. Another member tells his tennis partner that Grandview had to remove an employee who made one of the families uncomfortable. No names are used, but in a community of 247 member families, everyone knows everyone's staff. By the end of the week, 3 of Maya's former clients, families she'd worked with for months without incident, have quietly requested that she never be assigned to their properties again. The requests are filed as scheduling preferences, not complaints. They leave no trail, but Monica Schaefer adds them to Maya's file anyway, noted as pattern of member dissatisfaction. Maya finds out when she finally receives a partial copy of her personnel file, delivered not in 10 business days, but in 18, and missing 12 pages that are redacted due to confidential member communications. What remains is a portrait of an employee who was always one step away from failure. A write-up from March that Maya never received, claiming she arrived late to a vendor meeting. A note from July stating that a supervisor observed her appearing distracted during a task briefing. A comment from August, unsigned, undated, that suggests she struggles with authority. None of it was ever discussed with her. None of it was ever documented in real time. But now it exists, typed and filed and timestamped, a manufactured history designed to justify a predetermined conclusion. She takes the file to an employment attorney named David Brennan, a man in his 50s who works out of a cramped office above a dry cleaner in a strip mall. He charges $200 for the consultation, which Maya pays in cash because her bank account is thinning and she's already missed one mortgage payment. Brennan reads through the file in silence, his expression darkening with each page. When he finishes, he leans back in his chair and removes his glasses. "They're building a pretextual case," he says. "Everything here is vague enough to be defensible, specific enough to sound damning. It's legal technically, but it's also bullshit. Can I fight it? You can, but they've got institutional advantage. They control the records, the witnesses, the process. And if they're willing to lie in writing, they'll lie under oath." He taps the file. "The real question is why you? You've been there 11 months. You're about to hit your probationary period. They're putting a lot of effort into getting rid of someone who's almost eligible for benefits. That suggests this isn't just about one bad day at the Ashford estate." Maya has thought about this too. She's thought about who benefits from her removal, who requested it, who signed off. And the only answer that makes sense is the one she doesn't want to believe, that someone with power decided she didn't belong, and everything that followed was just the machinery of removal. "What do I do?" she asks. Brennan closes the file. "You force them to overreach. Right now they're being careful. They're following procedure just enough to cover themselves. But people who build fake cases always make one mistake. They get confident. They add one more lie. They pressure one more witness. They retaliate just a little too obviously. And when they do, that's when you have something actionable. How do I make them do that? You don't fold. You keep pushing. You demand the hearing. You demand transparency. You demand witnesses. You make it expensive and public and annoying. And eventually, someone will slip." Maya leaves the office with a plan that feels less like strategy and more like survival. She drafts a formal letter requesting that the appeal hearing include sworn testimony from Claudia, from Trevor Callahan, from anyone present during the October 9th inspection. She requests access to the CCTV footage from the service entrance on the morning her keycard was deactivated, citing security protocol that requires all access denials to be logged and reviewable. She requests a copy of the original complaint filed by Vanessa Ashford, unredacted, with the legal justification for why she is not allowed to face her accuser. She submits everything through certified mail, with tracking and signature confirmation. The response comes from Grandview's legal counsel, a man named Porter Keswick, whose letterhead lists a downtown firm with 18 partners. The letter is 2 pages long and says in careful legal language that her requests are overly broad, burdensome to operational efficiency, and not guaranteed under club policy or state employment law. It offers her one final option: resign voluntarily with a neutral reference, or proceed to the hearing and accept that the outcome is unlikely to favor her. Maya does not resign. The hearing is scheduled for November 14th, but 3 days before it's set to begin, something breaks. Trevor Callahan, the facilities supervisor who locked her out, sends an email to Monica Schaefer. He doesn't mean to copy Maya. It's a reply-all mistake, the kind that happens when someone is moving too fast, too carelessly. The email is short. "Confirming the Ashford statement has been finalized and signed. Pembroke wants it on record before the hearing. Let me know if we need to coordinate with Vanessa again or if this version is locked." Maya reads it 3 times. Then she forwards it to David Brennan with a single subject line: "They fabricated the complaint." Brennan calls her within the hour. His voice is tight, controlled, but there's something sharp underneath. This is it. This is the overreach. If they backdated a witness statement or pressured Ashford to sign something after the fact, that's falsification of evidence. That's fraud. What do I do? You show up to that hearing. You ask to see the original complaint, submission date, timestamp, everything. You put them on the record, and you watch them lie. Maya feels something shift inside her. Not hope exactly, but something colder, something clarifying. She has the email, she has the proof, and now she has a trap. The hearing never happens. On November 12th, 2 days before the scheduled date, Maya receives a registered letter from Grandview Country Club. Inside is a single page, formatted in official letterhead, signed by Richard Pembroke and countersigned by the club's legal counsel, Porter Keswick. The language is cold and final. Due to ongoing conduct concerns and the deterioration of the employment relationship, Grandview Country Club has determined that your continued employment is not in the best interest of the organization or its membership. Effective immediately, your employment is terminated for cause. You are not eligible for severance, unused vacation payout, or rehire consideration. All club property, including access credentials and uniform items, must be returned within 5 business days. No hearing, no testimony, no chance to present the email that proves they manufactured evidence. Just termination, delivered like a bill. Maya sits at her kitchen table and reads it 4 times. Her hands don't shake, her breath doesn't catch. She simply sits there, absorbing the weight of what has just been taken from her. Not just a job, but the possibility of fighting back inside their system. They've ejected her completely, and in doing so, they've made sure she has no platform, no standing, no internal recourse. David Brennan tells her she can file a wrongful termination lawsuit. He tells her the email from Trevor Callahan is strong evidence of retaliation and fraud. He also tells her that litigation will take 18 months minimum, cost upwards of $30,000, and that Grandview will bury her in motions, depositions, and procedural delays until she runs out of money or will. He tells her this gently, but he tells her the truth. The system is designed to exhaust people like her long before they reach a courtroom. Maya thanks him and says she'll think about it, but she knows she can't afford to think. She needs to survive. She applies for unemployment benefits. The claim is denied within a week. The reason listed: terminated for cause, violation of employer conduct policy. She appeals. The appeal requires a hearing with the State Labor Board, which is scheduled for January 9th, 8 weeks away. Until then, she receives nothing. She applies for new jobs. She sends her resume to property management firms, corporate facilities coordinators, hotel chains, cleaning services. She is qualified. She is experienced. She has references from her previous employer, a woman named Rita who ran a small home care company and loved Maya's reliability. But Grandview is the most recent job on her resume, and every application asks, reason for leaving? Maya writes, position eliminated. But when employers call Grandview to verify employment, they are told per policy only dates of employment and that she is not eligible for rehire. It's enough. In 11 days, Maya applies to 19 positions. She receives 3 rejection emails and 16 silences. The mortgage payment for November is 37 days overdue. The bank sends a letter with the word default printed in red at the top. If she misses December, they will begin foreclosure proceedings. Maya withdraws $800 from her savings account, the last buffer she has, and makes a partial payment. It buys her time, but not much. Simone notices. Of course she notices. Maya has tried to shield her, tried to keep her focused on school, on her college applications, on the future that still feels possible in her daughter's mind. But Simone is 16 and sharp, and she sees her mother coming home with grocery bags that are lighter than they used to be, sees the way Maya stares at her phone waiting for callbacks that never come, sees the tightness in her mother's jaw when she thinks no one is looking. One night Simone asks, "Are we going to lose the house?" Maya is folding laundry in the living room. She stops mid-fold, a towel in her hands, and for a moment she considers lying. But she's never lied to her daughter about the hard things, and she won't start now. "I don't know," Maya says quietly. "I'm trying to make sure we don't." Simone sits on the arm of the couch, her arms wrapped around her knees. Is it because of your job? Yes. What did you do? Nothing. Maya meets her daughter's eyes. I did nothing wrong, but sometimes that doesn't matter. Simone doesn't cry. She just nods, the way kids do when they've already learned that fairness is a story adults tell to make the world feel safer than it is. Then she goes upstairs, and Maya finishes folding laundry in silence, and the house feels smaller than it ever has before. The social erasure happens slowly, and then all at once. Maya's phone number is still in the contact lists of several Grandview families. Women she coordinated with for events, women who texted her directly when they needed something done quickly and correctly. She had been good at her job. She had been trusted. But now, those numbers go quiet. No one texts, no one calls. When Maya reaches out to one of them, a woman named Lillian Hartwell, whose daughter's wedding reception Maya had helped coordinate in September, the response is brief and cold. I'm sorry, but I've been advised not to engage with former staff regarding club matters. I hope you understand. Maya understands perfectly. Someone has sent a message. Someone has made it clear that associating with her is a liability, a risk to membership standing, a violation of the unspoken rules that keep people inside the circle and others permanently outside. She tries one more time. She calls Claudia again, the housekeeper from the Ashford estate, the woman who knows the truth. This time, Claudia doesn't hang up, but her voice is tight, frightened in a way that makes Maya's chest ache. Please don't call me again, Claudia whispers. They told me if I talk to you, I'll lose my job. I have grandchildren. I send money home to my sister. I can't risk it, Maya. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Maya doesn't ask her to risk it. She simply says, I understand, and ends the call. Because she does understand. She understands that Claudia is surviving the same way Maya has survived for years. By staying quiet, by following orders, by making herself small enough that the people with power don't notice her long enough to crush her. She understands that asking Claudia to speak up is asking her to sacrifice everything for a fight that isn't hers. But it still hurts. It still feels like abandonment, even though Maya knows it's just fear. The breaking point comes on November 29th. Maya is sitting in her car outside a grocery store, calculator app open on her phone, trying to figure out if she can afford both milk and chicken this week when she gets a call from Simone's school. The voice on the other end is the school counselor, Mrs. Pacheco, a woman Maya has met twice during parent-teacher conferences. Mrs. Washington, I wanted to reach out because there's been some concern about Simone's attendance and her college application status. Maya's stomach drops. What do you mean? She's missed 4 days this month, and when I checked in with her yesterday about her scholarship deadlines, she told me she's not applying anymore. Maya closes her eyes. I'll talk to her. There's something else. Mrs. Pacheco's tone shifts, careful now, like she's stepping around glass. Simone mentioned that you're going through a difficult time financially. I want you to know that we have resources, reduced lunch programs, fee waivers for AP exams, community support services. There's no shame in asking for help. Maya feels the heat rising in her face, the humiliation of being pitied by someone who means well, but doesn't understand what it costs to accept charity, to be cataloged as someone who needs saving. She forces her voice to stay even. Thank you. I'll look into it. When she gets home, Simone is in her room, door closed. Maya knocks once and enters without waiting. Her daughter is lying on her bed, headphones in, staring at the ceiling. Why aren't you applying to colleges? Maya asks. Simone pulls out one earbud. Because we can't afford it. We'll figure it out. How? Simone sits up and there's something raw in her voice, something that sounds too much like resignation. You don't have a job. We're about to lose the house. I'm not going to pile $50,000 of debt on top of that just so I can say I went to college. I'll work. I'll get a job. I'll help. Maya's throat tightens. You are not giving up your future because of this. It's not giving up. It's being realistic. Simone's eyes are red, but she's not crying. She's past crying. You taught me that. You taught me to survive. Maya wants to argue. She wants to tell her daughter that survival isn't the same as surrender, that there's still a way forward, that the world hasn't beaten them yet. But the words feel hollow in her mouth because she's not sure she believes them anymore. That night, Maya sits alone in the dark living room, the glow of her laptop the only light. She opens the email from Trevor Callahan again, the one that proves they fabricated the complaint. She reads it over and over, looking for something she missed, some angle she hasn't considered. And then she opens a browser window and types, Vanessa Ashford. Go. The search results load slowly. Society page photos, charity event galleries, a lifestyle blog where Vanessa talks about interior design and hosting. Maya scrolls through images of a woman in her early 40s, blonde, polished, always smiling in that careful way that suggests she's never had to worry about anything more serious than which caterer to hire. There are photos of her with her husband, Craig Ashford, developer, philanthropist, club board member. And then buried in the search results, Maya finds something else. A news article from 6 months ago. Ashford Development Group announces major partnership with Grandview Holdings. The piece is short, corporate, announcing a joint venture between Craig Ashford's real estate firm and Grandview's parent company to develop luxury residential properties around the club's expanded golf course. The deal is worth $40 million, and the project liaison, overseeing member relations and community integration, is Richard Pembroke. Maya stares at the screen. She understands now. This was never about one bad inspection. This was about protecting a deal. Vanessa Ashford, whether she made a real complaint or simply let Pembroke manufacture one in her name, is married to a man whose business is entwined with Grandview's future. And Maya, a black woman who entered spaces where people like Vanessa are used to being served, not questioned, became a problem the moment someone decided she was one. Pembroke didn't just fire her to protect a member. He fired her to protect a $40 million partnership. Maya closes the laptop. She sits in the silence. And for the first time since this began, she feels something that isn't despair. It's clarity. Cold, sharp, unforgiving clarity. She can't fight them in their system. She can't win in their courts, on their timeline, with their rules. But she has the email. She has the proof of fraud. And she has a name, Craig Ashford, whose business reputation depends on discretion, legality, and clean contracts. The next morning, Maya drives to the public library and prints 5 copies of every document she has. The falsified complaint email, her work records, the timeline of retaliation, the redacted personnel file. She seals them in labeled envelopes. One goes to David Brennan, one goes to Janice. One stays in her lockbox, and 2 she addresses but does not send. One is addressed to the State Labor Board to be submitted with her unemployment appeal. The other is addressed to Craig Ashford's corporate office, marked Confidential Legal Matter. She doesn't send it yet, but she holds it in her hands, this single piece of leverage, this last card, and she waits for the moment when the people who tried to erase her make one more mistake. Because they will. People who believe they're untouchable always do. The call comes on December 3rd from a number Maya doesn't recognize. She almost doesn't answer. She's learned that unknown numbers are usually debt collectors or robocalls, but something makes her pick up on the 4th ring. Mrs. Washington? The voice is male, professional, measured. My name is Daniel Ortega. I'm an investigator with the State Department of Labor, Civil Rights Division. I'm calling regarding a complaint that was filed last week concerning your termination from Grandview Country Club. Maya sits up straighter, her pulse quickening. I didn't file a complaint with civil rights. I filed an unemployment appeal. I'm aware. But your case was flagged during a routine audit. There's a pause, the sound of paper shuffling. We've been monitoring Grandview for the past 8 months as part of a broader investigation into employment practices at private member organizations. Your termination, specifically the timeline and documentation, triggered an automatic review. I'd like to meet with you to discuss what happened. Would you be available tomorrow? Maya's mind races. She hasn't told anyone outside of David Brennan and Janice about the details of her case. She hasn't gone public. She hasn't contacted the media. But someone, somewhere in the state labor system, saw a pattern and flagged it. and now the institution that buried her is being watched. Yes, she says, I'm available. They meet the next morning at a coffee shop in a strip mall 20 minutes from Maya's house. Daniel Ortega is in his mid-40s, stocky, with a clean-shaven face and wire-rimmed glasses. He carries a leather portfolio and orders black coffee, no sugar. He doesn't smile much, but his handshake is firm, and when he sits across from Maya in a corner booth, his eyes are focused in a way that suggests he's already read her file and knows more than he's saying. He opens the portfolio and pulls out a thin stack of documents. I've reviewed your personnel file, the one Grandview submitted to the unemployment office. I've also reviewed your appeal, the email you submitted as evidence, and the timeline you documented. I have some questions. Maya nods. Ask. The email from Trevor Callahan references finalizing a statement from Vanessa Ashford, but according to the complaint log Grandview provided, misses. Ashford's original complaint was filed on October 11th, 2 days after your inspection. If the complaint was already filed, why would they need to finalize a statement 3 weeks later, right before your hearing? Maya meets his eyes. Because they were creating it. They didn't have a real complaint. They needed one that would hold up under scrutiny, so they went back and had her sign something after the fact. Ortega writes something down. Did you ever speak to Mrs. Ashford directly about the complaint? No, I was told it was confidential. I requested a copy of the original complaint multiple times. They refused. Did they give a reason? Policy, liability, member privacy. Maya's voice is steady, but there's an edge to it now. Every time I asked for evidence, they had a procedure that blocked it. Every time I asked for a witness, they'd already told that person not to talk to me. It wasn't an investigation. It was a script. Ortega flips to another page. You mentioned in your appeal that your task history was altered. Can you prove that? Maya pulls out her phone and opens the photos she took in October. Screenshots of her work portal showing green check marks and completed tasks. Then she shows him the screenshots from 2 weeks later. The same entries now marked incomplete with red flags. I documented everything before they could change it. I knew they'd rewrite the record. Ortega studies the images. He doesn't react, but he takes his time, zooming in, comparing dates. When he looks up, his expression is unreadable. Mrs. Washington, I need to be clear about what I can and cannot do. My authority is limited to employment law violations, discrimination, retaliation, wage theft, procedural misconduct. I can't prosecute fraud. I can't force them to rehire you. But I can audit their records, subpoena internal communications, and compel witness testimony under legal protection. If there's a pattern of retaliation or falsification, I can refer this to the State Attorney General's office. Maya leans forward. What do you need from me? Everything you have, every email, every document, every witness name, and I need you to be prepared for them to fight back. Grandview has resources. They'll lawyer up. They'll claim everything was done by the book. They'll try to discredit you. He closes the portfolio. But if they lied in official documents, if they falsified records submitted to a state agency, that's not just an employment dispute. That's fraud, and that's prosecutable. Maya slides the envelope across the table, the one she's been carrying for weeks, the one with copies of everything. This is everything I have. Ortega takes it. I'll be in touch. He leaves, and Maya sits alone with her coffee, watching through the window as he gets into a gray sedan and drives away. For the first time in 2 months, she feels something other than dread. Not hope exactly, but leverage, jurisdiction. The rules are still in play, but now someone with authority is enforcing them. 3 days later, Grandview Country Club receives a formal notice from the State Department of Labor. Maya doesn't see it, but David Brennan calls her to tell her it's been issued. The notice requires Grandview to produce all personnel records, internal communications, and complaint documentation related to Maya Washington's employment and termination within 15 business days. It also notifies them that any retaliation against potential witnesses will be considered obstruction and subject to penalties under state employment law. The notice is signed by Daniel Ortega and countersigned by his supervisor, a senior investigator named Helen Kwan. Grandview's response is swift and aggressive. Porter Keswick, the club's legal counsel, files a motion to quash the subpoena, arguing that the records contain confidential member information and that the state's request is overly broad and burdensome. He demands a hearing to challenge the scope of the investigation. The motion is denied within 48 hours. The Labor Department's position is clear. If Grandview used member complaints as the basis for employment termination, those complaints are employment records, not privileged communications. They must be produced. Richard Pembroke calls an emergency meeting with the club's executive board. Monica Schaefer is present, as is Trevor Callahan and Craig Ashford, whose seat on the board gives him direct influence over club policy. The meeting lasts 3 hours. No minutes are recorded, but an email goes out the next morning to all department heads. Effective immediately, all external inquiries regarding personnel matters must be referred to legal counsel. No employee is authorized to speak with outside investigators without prior approval. It's a containment strategy, but it's also panic, and panic makes people careless. Daniel Ortega begins interviewing witnesses. He starts with the people Grandview can't block: former employees, vendors, contractors who worked on site. He finds a maintenance worker who remembers Maya's keycard being deactivated without explanation. He finds a catering coordinator who was told not to contact Maya after her termination. And then he finds Claudia. He doesn't call her. He shows up at her home on a Saturday afternoon, identifies himself, and explains that she is not in trouble, that her testimony is protected under state law, and that refusing to cooperate with a labor investigation can result in penalties. He tells her calmly and clearly that she has the right to tell the truth without fear of retaliation. Claudia is terrified, but she is also tired of lying. And when Ortega asks her if Vanessa Ashford was present during Maya's inspection on October 9th, Claudia tells him the truth. No, she wasn't there. I let Maya in. I walked through the house with her. She was professional. She didn't argue with anyone. Mrs. Ashford didn't come home until after lunch. Claudia's voice shakes, but she doesn't stop. I was told to sign a statement saying there was a problem. Mr. Pembroke called me. He said it was just a formality, that it wouldn't affect me, that I just needed to confirm Mrs. Ashford had concerns. I signed it because I was scared. But it wasn't true. Ortega records the interview. He documents it, and then he requests a signed statement from Grandview's files. When it arrives, the date on Claudia's signature is November 10th, 4 weeks after the alleged incident, 3 days before Maya's scheduled hearing. The complaint that Grandview claimed was filed on October 11th wasn't formalized until a month later. It was fabricated retroactively to justify a termination that had already been decided. Wick Ortega forwards his findings to Helen Kwan. She forwards them to the State Attorney General's office with a recommendation for criminal investigation. The charge? Falsification of records submitted to a government agency, conspiracy to commit fraud, and witness tampering. The case is assigned to a prosecutor named Alicia Reyes, a woman with a reputation for dismantling institutions that believe they're above accountability. Grandview doesn't know this yet, but they're about to. On December 18, Richard Pembroke receives a phone call from Porter Keswick. The attorney's voice is tight, controlled, but underneath it is something Pembroke hasn't heard before: fear. The State Attorney General's office is opening a criminal investigation. They're requesting documentation related to the Washington termination, and they're specifically asking about the Ashford complaint. They know it was backdated. Pembroke is silent for 5 seconds. Then, how? The housekeeper talked, and someone inside the Labor Department flagged the timeline inconsistencies. We have a problem. Pembroke's jaw tightens. He spent 30 years managing problems. He's buried scandals, silenced accusers, negotiated settlements that never saw daylight. But this is different. This is state jurisdiction. This is documentation he can't shred. Emails that are already in government hands. Witnesses who are no longer afraid to talk. This is a trap he didn't see until he was already inside it. What do they want? Pembroke asks. Full cooperation, or they'll subpoena everything. Emails, meeting records, phone logs. And if they find evidence of intentional fraud, they'll file charges, not just against the club, against individuals. Pembroke stands and walks to the window of his office, looking out over the manicured grounds. the tennis courts, the pool where members' children are swimming in blissful ignorance of what's unraveling inside the administrative building. He thinks about Craig Ashford, whose $40 million deal depends on Grandview's reputation remaining pristine. He thinks about the board members who trusted him to handle this quietly. And he thinks about Maya Washington, the woman he dismissed as irrelevant, who somehow became the thread that unraveled everything. "We need to settle," Pembroke says, quietly, before this goes public. They're not interested in settling. The state doesn't settle fraud cases. They prosecute. Pembroke closes his eyes. "Then we control the narrative. We issue a statement. We say there was a procedural error, a miscommunication, and we're cooperating fully with the investigation. We make it look like we're the ones being transparent." Kessick's laugh is bitter. "Richard, they have emails. They have witness testimony. They have proof you fabricated a complaint to justify a termination. A press release isn't going to fix this." But Pembroke isn't listening anymore. He's already calculating, already strategizing, already trying to find the move that will let him walk away clean. And that calculation, that reflex to protect himself at all costs, is exactly what will destroy him. Because the next morning he does the worst thing he could possibly do. He calls Vanessa Ashford. "Vanessa, we need to talk. The state is asking questions about the complaint you filed. I need you to confirm that everything in the statement you signed is accurate. I need you on the record saying Maya Washington behaved inappropriately." Vanessa's voice is cool, almost amused. "Richard, I didn't file a complaint. I signed a paper you asked me to sign because you said it was a formality. I barely remember that woman. That's not..." Pembroke stops himself, recalibrates. "Look, this has become more complicated than we anticipated. If you could just..." "Are you asking me to lie to the state attorney general's office?" Silence. Vanessa laughs softly. "I'm not doing that, Richard. Craig has a business to protect. I have a reputation to protect. If you manufactured a complaint using my name, that's your problem. Don't make it mine." She hangs up. Pembroke stares at his phone, and for the first time in his career, he realizes he's lost control. Not because the state is investigating, not because the evidence is damning, but because the people he thought he could rely on, the members, the board, the families who owed him favors, are abandoning him the moment it becomes inconvenient to stay loyal. He is alone, and the trap is closing. 2 days later, the state attorney general's office issues a press release. It announces a formal investigation into employment practices at Grandview Country Club, with a focus on allegations of record falsification and witness tampering. It names Richard Pembroke as a subject of the investigation. The story is picked up by local news, then regional, then national, because it's not just about one club or one woman. It's about institutions that believe they can destroy people without consequence. And Maya Washington, who has been silent for 2 months, who has survived erasure and humiliation and financial ruin, finally sees the machinery of justice begin to turn. Not because she begged, not because she broke, but because she documented everything, trusted the right person, and waited for the villains to trap themselves. The unraveling begins with Trevor Callahan. He's the weakest link, the man who followed orders because he thought that's what kept him safe. But on December 22nd, when a state investigator shows him a subpoena for his personal emails and phone records, when they tell him that obstruction of justice carries a prison sentence, when they explain that cooperating now might be the only thing that keeps him out of handcuffs, Trevor breaks. He sits in a windowless conference room at the state attorney general's field office, his hands shaking, a cup of water untouched in front of him. Daniel Ortega is across from him, calm and patient. Alicia Reyes, the prosecutor, sits at the end of the table, her pen poised over a legal pad. They don't threaten him. They don't need to. They simply lay out the evidence. The email he sent about finalizing Vanessa Ashford's statement, the access logs showing he personally deactivated Maya's keycard, the personnel file alterations that trace back to his supervisor account, and they ask him one question. Who told you to do it? Trevor's voice is barely a whisper. Pembroke, Richard Pembroke. Did he tell you to falsify the complaint? He said. Trevor stops, swallows hard. He said Mrs. Ashford had concerns and that we needed to document them properly. He said Maya Washington was a problem and that we needed to handle it before it became a bigger issue. He told me to coordinate with Monica Schaefer to make sure the paperwork was airtight. He said the board wanted her gone. Did he ever say why? Trevor hesitates. Then, he said Craig Ashford didn't want any complications during the development deal. He said if there was any chance Maya could cause trouble, complaints, lawsuits, bad press, it was better to cut her loose early. He called it risk management. Ortega leans forward. Did you know Vanessa Ashford wasn't present during the October 9th inspection? Yes. Did you tell Pembroke that? Yes, he said it didn't matter. He said perception was reality, and if a member felt uncomfortable, that was enough. Trevor's hands clench into fists. I thought we were following protocol. I thought it was legal. Alicia Reyes looks up from her notes. Mr. Callahan, you falsified a complaint, altered employment records, and participated in a coordinated effort to terminate someone without cause. That's not protocol. That's fraud. But if you cooperate fully, if you provide testimony, documents, recordings, we can discuss immunity. If you don't, you'll be charged alongside Pembroke. Trevor nods, his face pale. I'll cooperate. He signs a sworn statement that afternoon. It's 43 pages long, detailing every conversation, every directive, every piece of evidence that was manufactured or buried. It names Richard Pembroke as the architect. It names Monica Schaefer as the executor. And it names Craig Ashford as the beneficiary, the man whose business interests motivated the entire operation. The statement is filed with the court on December 27. By December 28th, it's leaked to the press. The headline in the regional newspaper reads, Grandview Country Club accused of fabricating complaints to terminate employee. State investigation expands. The article includes excerpts from Trevor's testimony, quotes from Claudia's interview, and a timeline showing the backdated complaint. It mentions Maya Washington by name, not as a victim, but as the catalyst for an investigation that has now expanded to include employment practices affecting dozens of former staff members over the past 5 years. By the afternoon, the story is picked up nationally. Exclusive club faces fraud charges. After whistleblower exposes termination scheme. The coverage is brutal. It details the $40 million development deal, Craig Ashford's ties to the club board, and Richard Pembroke's history of quietly removing employees who were perceived as liabilities. It includes a photograph of Maya, one she didn't provide, pulled from an old LinkedIn profile, and a statement from Alicia Reyes. This investigation is ongoing, and we expect additional charges to be filed as we uncover the full scope of institutional misconduct. Grandview's response is immediate and catastrophic. The board of directors holds an emergency meeting on December 29th. Richard Pembroke is placed on administrative leave pending the outcome of the investigation. Monica Schaefer resigns, citing personal reasons, though her resignation letter is clearly written by an attorney and admits no wrongdoing. Craig Ashford steps down from the board, releasing a statement through his publicist. I was unaware of any improper actions taken by club administration. I am cooperating fully with investigators and have directed my legal team to review all agreements between Ashford Development and Grandview Holdings. But the damage is done. The development deal stalls. Investors pull out. 3 families withdraw their memberships, citing ethical concerns, and the club's reputation, built over 60 years on discretion, exclusivity, and the appearance of propriety, collapses in less than a week. On January 3rd, the State Attorney General's office files formal charges. Richard Pembroke is charged with fraud, falsification of records, and conspiracy to obstruct a government investigation. Monica Schaefer is charged as an accessory. Trevor Callahan receives immunity in exchange for his testimony. The charges carry a combined maximum sentence of 12 years. Pembroke's attorney holds a press conference. He stands on the steps of the courthouse, his client beside him, and reads a prepared statement. Mr. Pembroke denies all charges and looks forward to his day in court. He acted in good faith, following club policy and protecting member interests. Any suggestion that he acted criminally is false and defamatory. But no one is listening. Because 2 hours after the press conference, Daniel Ortega releases a recording. It's a voicemail Richard Pembroke left for Vanessa Ashford on December 19th, the day after he realized the investigation was expanding. His voice is calm, measured, but the words are damning. Vanessa, I need you to confirm the complaint. I know it's been a while, but the state is asking questions, and it's important we present a united front. Just tell them, Maya Washington made you uncomfortable. That's all you need to say. I'll handle the rest. It's not a suggestion. It's an instruction. It's proof of witness tampering, delivered in Pembroke's own voice. The recording is played on the evening news. It's embedded in online articles. It's shared thousands of times on social media, dissected by legal commentators, and cited by prosecutors as evidence of consciousness of guilt. Richard Pembroke's attorney withdraws from the case the next day. By January 10th, Grandview Country Club has lost 18 member families. The club's insurance carrier sends a letter terminating their liability coverage due to intentional misconduct exclusions. The remaining board members hire a crisis management firm and release a public apology. We deeply regret the actions taken by former administrators and are committed to ensuring that no employee is ever treated unjustly again. We are conducting a full internal review and implementing new oversight procedures. But it's too late. The institution that spent 2 months trying to erase Maya Washington is now erasing itself. On January 14th, Maya receives a call from Porter Keswick, the attorney who once told her to resign quietly or face months of litigation. His voice is different now, formal, stiff, emptied of its earlier condescension. Mrs. Washington, I'm calling on behalf of Grandview Country Club to discuss a settlement. Maya is standing in her kitchen, the same kitchen where she sat 2 months ago, trying to figure out how to afford groceries. She lets the silence stretch for a moment. Then, I'm listening. The club is prepared to offer full back pay, reinstatement with benefits, a formal apology, and compensation for emotional distress. We're also prepared to expunge your termination from all records and provide a neutral reference for future employment. How much compensation? Keswick hesitates. $250,000. Maya doesn't react. She's learned not to show her cards. That's the offer? It's a generous offer, Mrs. Washington, and it comes with a non-disclosure agreement. You would agree not to discuss the settlement publicly or disparage the club in any form. Maya closes her eyes. She thinks about the last 2 months, the humiliation, the fear, the nights she couldn't sleep because she didn't know how she'd keep her daughter housed and fed. She thinks about Claudia, who was terrified into silence. She thinks about the other employees Trevor mentioned in his testimony, people who were pushed out quietly, their records altered, their reputations destroyed, and who never had the resources or the luck to fight back. No, Maya says. Keswick's voice sharpens. Mrs. Washington, this is an excellent settlement. If you proceed to trial, there's no guarantee. I don't want your money. I want the state to finish its case. I want Pembroke prosecuted. I want the record to show what was done, not just to me, but to everyone they silenced. Her voice is steady, cold, final. And I'm not signing anything that lets them pretend this didn't happen. She hangs up. 3 days later, Alicia Reyes calls her. I heard you turned down the settlement. I did. That was either very brave or very foolish. There's a pause, but it makes my job easier. Pembroke's legal team has been trying to negotiate a plea deal. They wanted the charges reduced to a misdemeanor, no jail time, just probation and a fine. I told them no, but if you'd taken the settlement, it would have been harder to argue that real harm was done. Now I can put you on the stand. I can show the jury what it costs when institutions lie. Maya's throat tightens. When's the trial? April. And Mrs. Washington, we're going to win. The trial of Richard Pembroke begins on April 8th and lasts 6 days. The prosecution presents the falsified complaint, the altered personnel records, the emails, the voicemails, and the testimony of Trevor Callahan and Claudia. They present Maya's documentation, the screenshots, the timeline, the evidence she preserved when the institution tried to rewrite history. They call Daniel Ortega to the stand, and he walks the jury through every procedural violation, every lie, every moment when Grandview chose power over truth. On the 4th day, Maya testifies. She tells her story calmly, without dramatics, answering every question with precision. She describes the locked door, the suspended key card, the meeting where she was told she had no right to see the evidence against her. She describes watching her task history change in real time, knowing that someone was erasing her competence to justify her removal. And when the defense attorney tries to suggest she was terminated for legitimate cause, Maya looks him in the eye and says, "Then why did they have to lie?" The jury deliberates for 3 hours. They return a guilty verdict on all counts. Richard Pembroke is sentenced to 4 years in prison and fined $150,000. Monica Schaefer accepts a plea deal, 2 years probation, community service, and a permanent ban from holding HR positions. Grandview Country Club is fined $2.3 million by the State Labor Board and placed under federal monitoring for employment practices. Craig Ashford's development deal is canceled, costing his firm $18 million in projected revenue. And on a quiet morning in late April, Maya Washington receives a letter. It's from the State Labor Board informing her that her unemployment benefits have been approved retroactively, that Grandview has been ordered to pay restitution, and that her employment record has been formally cleared. Attached is a check for $87,000, back pay, statutory damages, and compensation for the harm caused by fraudulent termination. Maya sits at her kitchen table and stares at the check. It's not justice exactly. Justice would mean none of this ever happened. But it's vindication. It's proof that the machinery of power, when properly engaged, can still be made to work for people like her. Simone comes downstairs and sees her mother holding the letter. "What is it?" Maya looks up, and for the first time in months, she smiles. "It's over." Simone sits beside her. "What are you going to do now?" Maya thinks about the question. She thinks about the other employees who were silenced, the ones who didn't have documentation or didn't know their rights or were too afraid to fight. She thinks about Claudia, who risked everything to tell the truth. And she thinks about the institutions that still operate the same way Grandview did, quietly, efficiently, crushing people who don't have the power to resist. "I'm going to make sure this doesn't happen to anyone else," Maya says. And she means it. 6 months later, Maya Washington stands in the lobby of a law office she never thought she'd enter. It's not grand, just 3 rooms above a pharmacy in a modest downtown strip. The kind of place where the coffee is instant and the furniture is secondhand. But the sign on the door reads, Washington Brennan Employment Advocacy, and that's enough. David Brennan had called her in February, 3 weeks after the verdict. He'd asked if she'd ever considered working in employment law. Not as an attorney, but as an advocate. Someone who could sit with people who'd been wronged and help them navigate the system that nearly destroyed her. He told her there were 100 Maya Washingtons out there who didn't know how to document, didn't know their rights, didn't have the resilience or the luck to fight back. He said he couldn't pay her much, not at first, but he could teach her, and together they could build something that mattered. No, she'd said yes. Now she sits across from a woman named Terry, 52, who was fired from a hospital after reporting safety violations. Terry's hands shake as she talks, her voice thin with exhaustion and fear. She has 2 folders of emails, printed and highlighted, and a timeline she's written by hand on notebook paper. She doesn't know if any of it is enough. She doesn't know if anyone will listen. Maya listens. She takes notes. She asks questions that Terry didn't know mattered. Who witnessed the retaliation? Whether the hospital submitted anything to the state? What documentation exists that can't be altered? And when Terry starts to cry, apologizing for being emotional, for wasting Maya's time, Maya reaches across the desk and places her hand over the other woman's. "You're not wasting my time," Maya says quietly, "and you're not alone." Terry leaves an hour later with a plan, a list of next steps, and the phone number of Daniel Ortega, who's agreed to consult on cases that Maya and Brennan bring to his attention. She leaves with something else too, something Maya recognizes because she felt it herself 6 months ago, sitting in this same kind of office, desperate for someone to believe her. She leaves with hope. Maya closes the file and exhales. The work is hard. The system is still broken. Most cases don't end with verdicts or apologies. Most people settle quietly, take what they can get, and move on because survival's more important than vindication. But some cases, like Terry's, like Maya's, have enough documentation, enough courage, enough leverage to force institutions to answer for what they've done. And that's enough. Simone is in her first semester at State University studying sociology. She's on a full scholarship, academic, not need-based, because her GPA and essays were strong enough to earn it on merit. She calls her mother twice a week, sometimes just to talk, sometimes to complain about her roommate or her professors. She's happy. She's safe. And she knows, without Maya ever saying it directly, that her mother fought to make sure she could have a future that wasn't dictated by fear or financial ruin. The house is still small, the bills are still tight, but Maya made the December mortgage payment and the January payment and every payment since. The bank sent a letter in March confirming that her account was no longer in default. She framed it, not because it's beautiful, but because it's proof. Some nights Maya drives past Grandview Country Club. She doesn't stop. She doesn't need to. But she sees the for lease signs on two of the commercial properties that were supposed to be part of the Ashford development. She sees the articles that mention the club's declining membership and the lawsuits filed by former employees who found the courage to come forward after her case went public. She sees the way power, when exposed, collapses under the weight of its own corruption. Richard Pembroke is in a minimum security facility 2 hours north. Serving his sentence, he'll be eligible for parole in 2 years. Monica Schaefer works at a call center now, her HR career over. Craig Ashford's firm is still operating, but his name no longer carries the influence it once did. People remember, institutions remember, and that memory is justice of a kind. Maya doesn't celebrate any of this. She doesn't post about it. She doesn't tell her story at parties or seek recognition. She simply lives, works, pays bills, calls her daughter, helps people like Terry navigate the systems designed to silence them. One evening, she's locking up the office when her phone buzzes. It's a text from Claudia, the housekeeper who risked everything to tell the truth. They've stayed in touch, exchanging messages every few weeks. The text is short. "Thank you for not giving up. You taught me something." Maya reads it twice. Then she replies, "You taught me something too." She drives home as the sun sets, the sky turning amber and violet over the quiet streets. She thinks about the locked door, the red light on the key card reader, the moment 2 months ago when she thought everything was lost. She thinks about how close she came to breaking, to begging, to accepting that some fights can't be won. But she didn't break, and the fight was won. Not perfectly, not completely, but enough. Maya pulls into her driveway and sits for a moment in the silence. The house is dark, but it's hers. The work is hard, but it's meaningful. The scars are still there, but they're healing. She gets out of the car, locks the door, and walks inside. And for the first time in a long time, the weight she's been carrying feels just a little bit lighter. Because justice isn't loud. It isn't triumphant. It isn't a moment of victory where villains grovel and crowds cheer. Justice is this: waking up the next day and knowing that the people who tried to erase you failed. Justice is reclaiming your name, your work, your dignity, and then helping someone else do the same. Justice is surviving, and then choosing every single day not to let what they did turn you into something you're not. Maya closes the door behind her, turns on the light, and finally, lets herself rest.